Ladies and gentlemen, it's our call to the bullpen episode. It's the Mound Visit where you control what we blab about here on Mound Visit. Mound Visit episode number 61 coming in hot. It's our second episode of the week. It's our call to the bullpen episode. We are Mound Visit. I'm Casey Honigbaum, joined as always by the 15-year Major League Baseball veteran and all-star closer, Jason Grilli, coming at us today. A little Mets versus Braves here. That's what we got going on.
Yes.
So we're having fun with that. We are a part of the Believe Podcast Network. Every team, every topic, everywhere. And if you like this show, please, before we start the episode, be sure to subscribe. You could do that on YouTube if you like to watch.
It doesn't hurt.
And
it doesn't
find
hurt.
it. That's right.
It's not painful.
It actually helps.
Yeah.
No. And it really helps us out. We love it. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you want to do that. You can follow the show wherever you like to listen to your podcast if you just like to do that as well. No pressure to see our ugly mugs on camera every day. So,
but you get secrets. You get good baking tips. You get good baking tips. What to do, not do, and not do on a grill, right? Summer barbecues, and how to doctor up your hand if you need more tack on it. I can show you how to do that without cheating. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can do when you tell the truth and you don't cheat, and you still have a 20-year career. It's amazing what you can do.
Yeah.
And if you do, badass. We're just talking about badassery. So, Dad, definitely subscribe. Definitely subscribe.
That's right, and this show is brought to you by Sweet Hands Sports, rising name in the batting glove industry. They sell golf gloves, hats, whatever you need. They're a local Pittsburgh product, so you should definitely check them out. And you can use code MoundVisit10 to get 10% off of your first purchase today at sweethandsports.com. So make sure to check them out, and thank you, Sweet Hands Sports, for sponsoring the show here. So today we're going to dive into some fan questions, and we've got 4 really good ones. We kind of teased it on the last episode that we had, but one of them, this one comes from Thomas James 4 on Twitter X. I'm still going to call it Twitter, whatever. We'll start off hot here with
terrible
this one,
name. They need to get a better name than that.
Yeah, I agree.
X.
Not you, Thomas. X. Yeah.
Yes, X.
But so Thomas wants to know, why are we seeing so much mediocrity in today's MLB? He said on your last episode, he's talking 2 episodes ago, Jason, you said there were only 13 teams at or above 500. Do we think there's a reason for this? Because it doesn't seem like more teams are getting better. What do you got on that for us, Grilli?
Again, I touched on the way that we're developing, what we've allowed with all the metrics. I think as technologies become important and these numbers seem to be more significant, go look at an old-time baseball card. Go look at the numbers that used to matter the most on a baseball card from, 1960 or whatever, a Roberto Clemente card or somebody that from yesteryear, right? Take it from back then, before all these other numbers that we are now making up some new statistics and blending some things and whatever, right? I mean,
old man yelling at cloud segment. This is my favorite. There we go.
Listen, I didn't know I had a FIP. Does that matter? If I'm getting somebody out, what the fuck do they need a FIP for? It's like it sounds like more of a disease than it sounds as something that matters in my baseball card. So if it's not on the back of a baseball card, Thomas, I don't know. I don't think it really matters. And I think what should matter to people is if you're around 500 or if you're not, you better start playing better. Do the little things. Like I said, base running and all these little things. Play the game. There's a game. Yeah. It's a game, a strategy. It used to be a very strategic game to, yes, score more runs. But when there's nobody on base, it's hard to hit a 3-run home run.
That's a great point. It's interesting because I agree. I think it's a combination of some of those things that you said. I also think a lot of what it is, and I'd love to know what you think about this, but I think that the most recent playoff format has a lot to do with this. I think teams and front offices just kind of want to be. I think there's a handful of teams. I think you look at like the Dodgers, I think the Phillies, for instance, could be an example of that. Probably the Braves. I know they're not having a great year, but throughout the last couple of years. But I think a lot of teams kind of just want to be good enough to get into the playoffs and then hope that they get hot at the right time so that they can ride that momentum, all the way. I mean, we've seen that the last couple of years with this new playoff format. The Phillies did it 2 years ago. The Diamondbacks did it last year. I mean, to an extent, you could kind of say that the Rangers did it because it's not like, they weren't everybody's pick for the World Series necessarily going into that year. They ended up winning the whole damn thing.
So that's why I say, dude, recipes. I told you.
Yeah.
I said we talk about recipes here. I'm telling you that it takes the right blend, right? Just like Colonel Sanders' chicken. Why do you think you think the first seasoning and everything, he made the first bucket of chicken was like, that's it.
Salt.
He probably went through a lot of experimental and experiential treatments on the chicken that he now sells tons of. So same thing is, I feel like there's been this experimental game change of, I believe, I want to credit Theo Epstein because I did read an article here. He says, I changed the game and I made these things matter, and he built winning teams. Yeah. But he changed the brand of baseball. He even himself said he changed the brand of baseball. But what we're teaching and developing, like I said, the bridge between amateurs and the big leagues is the collegiate level. And what kind of baseball we're developing there and what we're carrying on into the minors and majors, there's a different brand of baseball. And if we're continually looking at the velocities and the strength and the power numbers and the sexy things, and listen, I like to celebrate and have a good time just as much as everybody else, right?
Sure.
But I think that everybody's wanting that moment, that picturesque moment. It's great for your Instagram or whatever. I think, though, if you want to win that World Series rings, you got to get everybody to buy in on doing the little things, the base running, the moving the runners over, sac flies, which when I was playing, I was like, when was the last time we had a sacrifice fly? When was it was like such a rarity. We talked about it all the time on the bench. I go, when are we going to have a sacrifice? I would love to know how many there you go. Stupid statistic of the week. Find out how many sacrifice flies that drive in an RBI.
That's my homework. Okay.
Because now it's like hit it over the wall. Hit it over the wall.
Yeah.
There's no sac flies, man. They're going over the wall. They're trying to go over the wall.
It's interesting. No, it's a great point, and I think like it seems like every year in the postseason, the recipe for success is like you need 2 or 3 really good starters. You got to have a good bullpen, and then guys that can bang, guys who can hit the ball over the wall, because we've seen it a lot. That's the backbreaker in these playoff games. There aren't as many games. And maybe this is just me getting caught up in kind of what we're talking about, but it seemed from my memory, there aren't a ton of games that are won with small ball and with, some of those things, sac flies and sac bunts.
Well, what is the most exciting play in baseball? The play at the plate, right?
Steal home. Oh, yeah. Well,
play at the plate. Well,
sure.
Like I said, winning run, when you throw somebody out, like you're hoping maybe even on a triple, you see it more of a guy legging out a double, going for a triple, to be thrown at third base. But I don't see a lot of, like I said, that sacrifice fly, games on, or even a meaningful run. That play used to be so like, oh, man. I used to love when I didn't pitch and I wasn't playing first base, rested my arm. I loved playing right field. I wanted somebody to try to run and have that one hopper, 2 hopper, boom, boom, play at the plate. That is a thrill, man. I used to love watching. I was a Yankee fan because Dave Winfield. I used to love watching him.
There you go.
All these guys that would do that type of thing. They even had, I forget what it was called. Oh my God! But it was always the challenge right around the All-Star game. Brett Butler used to do all the bunting. They had the guys that were great bunters, and they would get a certain amount of points. See, this is before your time, buddy.
Yeah.
Right?
Did they do that in like Japan? Don't they do that?
Maybe they do still. Maybe they do still.
I think
I haven't seen it in a while.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, right? There's home run derby and all that, but they would do skills tests, right? They do it a little bit with, I know Cal Ripken tournaments, they do that stuff, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they gamify some of the fundamentals, and they make fun with it, make a game out of it, challenges with it. So those are the things I think to answer. We went way.
It was a long-winded question. Thomas, I hope that answered your
Thomas, you got a segment just on your question, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, let's go to the next one here and move through a couple of these.
Long-winded.
Jane, also on X, Jane_Stevens said, "What do the Blue Jays do here?" This one I think is for you as well. "I'm torn between seeing if they can get back in the mix or if they just need a fire sale and reset. Do we trade Vladdy, Bo, etc.? Would love your thoughts."
I would love Vladdy to come to the Pirates. I'm okay with that. You wanted to give it a package deal if you get Bo
from
over
one
here
of your
too?
Teams to another.
Yeah, listen, I'm a big fan of both of them, and I love my Blue Jays. It's hard. It's hard seeing guys that these players get comfortable. Toronto's a great place to play. To me, it's always hard. I can see why fans, when they invest in a jersey and they hope that guy's going to be there a while. Those are guys you go to the team store, man. Bichette and Vladdy.
Those are the guys.
Those are guys. Those are. That's a huge thing. I don't know what they're going to do. That AL East is a tough division, and if the Blue Jays are going to keep up and they're going to go into rebuild mode, man, I don't know what you get and how many years you're going to be developing and leaving that gateway for these other teams that are going to be doing it. Because Tampa Bay. Whatever Tampa Bay does, that's the scariest team in that division to me because they have the best. They have the best. They're always in the mix. They're scary in postseason. Yep. They have the best developmental system in everybody with their secret formula. Like I said, their recipe is unbelievable. Whatever they do and their scouting department and the formula that they put together is always magical. Always.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I mean to go back to Jane's question. I think, it's interesting because right now Blue Jays are in last place. They're 7 games back of a wild card.
That hurts.
I think the way that the American League looks, the American League is stacked. If they were in the National League, it's a completely different story, I think. But they're just kind of. Not only, like you mentioned, are they in a division where every other team except for them are above 500 as we speak right now, but I mean the Red Sox are 6 games over 500. They're not even in a playoff spot. They're half a game back right now of that third wild card. But I think for the Blue Jays it's tough because how do you balance? Part of me feels like if you're going to sell, you go all in. And it's kind of, we talked about this on episode 60, I believe, of Mound Visit, our last episode, where we talked a little bit about the White Sox to finish off that episode. And I'm not saying the Blue Jays are as big of a dumpster fire as the White Sox are, but for whatever reason, the Blue Jays, they had that exciting young core with Vlad and Bo Bichette and Kevin Biggio, who's now on the Dodgers. And it just, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out the way that a lot of us fans, and I'm sure the players in the front office there, expected. And I think that it just goes to show, again, windows in baseball are so small. And it's hard for me to fault the Blue Jays because they really did go all in. I mean, trading for Barrios at the deadline a couple years ago, going and getting Matt Chapman and some of the moves that they made, like they've tried to do it. It just hasn't worked out on the field. So I don't know. I think you probably, if you're going to trade someone, I think you probably trade Vladdy because you could sell the highest on him right now. He's got the most value. Problem with Bo Bichette is if you sell him right now, you're selling super low. I mean, he's having a down year, but he's shown that he's a phenomenal player.
I always say they usually say that you draft a 5 to a player. I feel like there's 5 stages that every player wants to go through, and with the turnaround, like I said, look at my jerseys. I've been everywhere. But when you have marquee players, I wasn't as good as some guys, and their jersey collection's smaller than mine.
Sure.
I would have loved that. But the goal is you get drafted, then you have a big league debut, right? That's a big moment. Then you want to be an everyday player, right? The whole season, you want to be there every day. Then you want to get that long-term deal, and the last thing you want to do is win. So, as a player, I feel like, and excuse Glover, he's snoring over here. He wore himself out from all that anxiety. If you hear him in the background, the winning part for a player, and to win once, and then once you get a taste of that winning, you want more of it. So, there's just what am I trying to say? There's all this push and pull because loyalty in anything, I think now is like same as, hey, you got Coke and Pepsi. Are you loyal to one or the other? Do you like your Verizon or your AT&T carrier? Are you switching because of pricing? It's the same iPhone I'm using. I don't care what service. If I'm getting the same production out of somebody, I'm going to keep them, right? If it's not happening, you're going to go, what do we got to do? What do we got to do? And there's that panic, and it's like, goes back to what we said. Hey, we went 3 out of 7. We had a shitty week. But does that mean we are a shitty team? I don't know. Maybe we got to look at the next 10 or 20 or 30 before we make that call. It's just like, when do you make that call? You got to look at some of these intangibles that maybe are happening behind the scenes. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. It's like, what you know about, we're reporting on it. We're talking about it. What don't we know about? That's where all the GMs are having these phone calls every day and typing away and emailing, hey, will you take this guy? Can you imagine if we got access to those emails?
Yeah.
Like Tim Kirchin and all those guys do. Oh, it just leaked out there. And it's on our Mound Visit show. Imagine that, right? But no, those are the things that matter. I don't know. Are we going to see those guys in a different uniform at some point?
Well, that's
absolutely.
The thing. There's a lot. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of need for, like, someone like a Vladdy would fetch a pretty big haul on the market right now, especially because he's got years of control left. I think someone like Chris Bassett could be someone who could be on the move. It's interesting because
you're always going to take an arm if you can get it in a playoff run.
Absolutely, and he, he's not on a deal that's so massive like a Gausman deal up in the triple figures with in terms of hundreds of millions. But I think it's always tough to look at it like that, and I think the White Sox are going to sell this year. I'd be shocked if they didn't. But the Blue Jays are in that weird spot where it's like we still got guys who are young and seemingly about to enter their prime. And I think that's the tough part. And that's why, like I said earlier, I give credit to the White Sox for going all in, signing Bassett, signing Gausman, giving Barrios an extension, things like that to try and I think they did everything right. It just didn't work out. And I think that's the tough part about this game and sports in general. But
who I
don't know if that answered your question, Jane. But
one more thing. What comes to mind is I look at a guy like Cliff Lee, who went from the Indians to the Phillies. When you get a taste, you're a good player. You might get buried and you might not be noticed and recognized enough for doing your job. But when you go to a winning team and all of a sudden it's like, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm enhanced, and you elevate your game, you can play down to, if you're playing bad baseball. We used to tease when I was with the Braves in 16 and we won 5 games in April. Johnny Gomes and I used to laugh because we're like, this is a really good team, but we're making them play terrible. They're a really good team, but they play to our level. And we were bringing them down because they're playing us. We were making jokes because we were trying to figure out that pain. But like I said, on the flip side of the playoffs, those star players that aren't seemingly having good years or giving that spark, and that losing is hard, man. It drags you down. Yeah. Then you get this rejuvenation like, oh, my God, I'm going to a winning team. Happened to me. I got traded from the Braves, losing in 16, to the Blue Jays, and I got to go to the playoffs. I was like, oh, my God. And I was setting up, and it was like crowds and the energy, and you feed off of it, man. So
yeah, maybe a bit of a change of scenery for some
change of scenery is always refreshing sometimes, but I'll tell you what, man, it's hard to argue when it's time for front offices to try to plan and make some moves, because might be the time. I don't know. It's a tough question.
Yeah, it's kind of an impossible situation for the Blue Jays front office, so I definitely don't envy their GM. Our next question, we got 2 more here. We'll get through these here. This one comes from Shane. He says,
with
curious
E's,
how many
bro.
teams. Yeah, 3 E's on Shane. I like it a lot.
Triple E's.
Curious how many teams you guys believe can actually win the World Series right now. I can honestly count 3: Dodgers, Phillies, Orioles. Are there any? I typed this up wrong. Are there any I'm missing? And would this be the lowest number to this point in a season? It's a good question. That's a really good question.
That's a very good question. Again, I'm going to throw.
I agree with the 3 that he has, by the way.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I'm going to bowling ball that just based on last year because we can sit there and everything on paper always sounds great. You can make a plan and it can blow up. And you look at all 3 of those teams, right? The Braves last year, not the Phillies. You replace the Phillies with the Braves, you can insert whoever you want with winning records and the best teams now. The Arizona Diamondbacks were proof. They weren't even there, and they went to the World Series. Right. So how can you predict when you get in this tournament? And that's what I've mentioned before. I feel a 1-game wild card should be the way because it's unfair for these other teams that you mentioned here, Dodgers, Phillies, Orioles. I think those teams and any other team actually that would have a winning chance to win they will win. They'll have a better chance if they don't have a week or 8 days, 10 days off.
The rest, yeah, right. That rest period is killer. Yeah.
So they got to change that. And I can only frame my answer to the living real answer as a player than just what's on paper.
Yeah. Yeah, as a fan, I'll try and tackle the on paper, but I agree. I think to answer the second part of the question first, I do agree that I think this is the lowest number of teams that at this point I look at the standings and all of the rosters and say, yeah, these are the teams that I think can win a World Series. I do think the Dodgers. I think the Phillies, the way they're going right now. I think the Baltimore Orioles. I would argue the Cleveland Guardians have a real shot, and their pitching is phenomenal. Their bullpen is unbelievable, and they are finding ways to piece together offense, and it's in a different way than what you expect. It's not. I mean, it's so different than what we're used to with a lot of the teams and the recipe for success that we've seen over the past couple of years. They're finding ways to do it, with guys that make a lot of contact and, hit the ball hard. It sounds like a very basic answer, I know, but you've got your star in Jose Ramirez, obviously, but then it's a lot of guys who are, up and coming, but also guys that you might not expect. David Fry is an example of that. And I'm just...
How about that guy?
Right? The funny... He and Stephen Kwan are one of the only, I believe,
the Kwan,
pairs of teammates.
It's all about the Kwan. Isn't that what Jerry Maguire said? The Kwan? It's all about the Kwan, Jerry.
Was that a
Jerry Maguire, right?
I love that movie. Show me the money.
It's about the Kwan. See, this is where we got to interject the movie scenes and
the scenes.
like Howard
monetized and then we
like Howard Stern does all the Baba Booey does in the background, all the sound effects. Sorry, I threw you off, bro.
No, that's okay. I was trying to think of how I would even do that, and then my mind went awry. But
you're talking about Fry, Kwan, Guardians.
Kwan. Oh yeah, they're one of the only. They're one of 4 pairs of teammates in Major League Baseball right now to have 2 guys with OPSs of 900 or more. It's David Fry and Stephen Kwan, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez, and Ohtani and. It's either Ohtani and Betts or Ohtani and Freeman. I'm blanking, but kind of crazy. So they've been fantastic. So those are, yes, to answer that second part of the question. I'm very long-winded here, but
you're unbelievable with the recall, the stats, and this stuff. This is where you are bread and butter, bro. It's unbelievable.
Sickness.
He has a sickness, but that's what you add this flavor to the show, man.
I like that. Thank you.
The analytics.
Thank you.
We have the analytics right here. Specifics and analytics, guy.
Yeah, we have the Half Moon Cookie. Right?
I just let you go.
Yeah.
Just let him go, boy. Just let him go.
Yeah, but anyways, Shane, great point and great question. I think that is. I agree. I think this is probably the lowest point at lowest number of teams that I can think of that it's like, yeah, this team's got a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to our last question, which is a really fun one. This is one you'll be able to answer, I think. Thoughts on the leaked All-Star Game uniforms, and curious if you two have a favorite iteration of the fall or of the Summer Classic unis. Have you seen this year's?
I have.
Have you seen the leak?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, thoughts?
Not even just this year. I'm just a big fan. Again, I'm old school. I wish that they would just wear the uniforms that the team you're on and put the stars on them. Make the that's just you're representing. That's what you represent. You know. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where we came up with this idea, because now we're getting too way off base on some of the stuff that's good, the traditions. I think when we get away from traditions and standards, there's all this controversy. You know, if something's great and it works and it's liked and it's respected, somebody has to change it and think that's great. I'm all for change, but I want it to be for the betterment of an elevation of. I haven't been fans of any of the All-Star teams that are game jerseys that are all, you know, opposite, positive and negative of each other, you know, in the American League, National
You don't like
League.
that? You don't like that kind of thing?
No, I like...
Not
I
even
like,
just for, like, batting practice or anything like that?
Well, I get that. Like, my batting practice was
sure.
of the Mets. We were in the Mets. I could show you, but it's no here nor there. I like the we had to wear the Mets colors for BP and that. But when it was game time, I did. We had our uniform. We had our Pirate uniform on.
Exactly.
And next to the MLB logo, they had 2 stars on each side of it. I thought that was freaking classy and cool.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And put the patch. You could put the patch on the arm.
Yes.
And a sponsor now, because we got it sponsored by, right? Let's go.
Sweet Hands, baby.
Sweet Hands.
Yeah, you make a great point. I agree. I was talking about this with some of my buddies today when the jerseys were leaked. I don't think they're bad at all. I don't hate them, but I agree with what you're saying. I remember being a kid watching the All-Star Game and getting to see. There's just something about looking out.
Yeah,
and
the
seeing
sea of
all
the
of
teams.
the players in their different uniforms,
home and away, man.
Like
White
you said,
and
they've
gray.
got their hat on with the stars on the back.
Yep.
It's awesome. It's
Yep.
awesome to see, and it's like you said, like it's a sense
It's
of
merchandising,
pride
and there's the business.
You know this better than anyone. Like, how cool was it to wear your Pittsburgh Pirates uniform and get to represent that?
I was proud to be one of the 5 guys. I was like, holy crap, we have a really good team. We had 5 guys represented in that All-Star game. It was amazing because we were jamming and we were united, and it was amazing. You know, from McCutcheon to Pedro Alvarez was there, Melanson, Jeff Locke. I called him Jimmy Key. See, I almost slipped. I used to tease him. I called him Jimmy Key, but he was a lefty, and myself, and it was amazing to be there and represent as a Pirate, and proud to be a Pirate. But yeah, just
because then you could look out. It's like
it's all merchandising, man, and there's the business side of the game. They're selling more merchandise, and memorabilia, and jerseys, and got to be flashy, flary, appeal to a new generation and a new crowd. I get that's what they're trying to do, but again, I think that's what makes the world go round. I think that's what makes Grandpa talk about sitting around and going back to, like I said, Willie Mays. If you had Willie Mays talking about this stuff, it would have a bigger, impactful stigma. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Yep. It would have a stigma different than if even I'm saying it, right? Just because the tradition and the things that make this game great when you go. But again, here's the story, right? We're living and talking and breathing about the greatest game. Why? Because it's played every day. It's the biggest reality TV show going. You got drama.
Yeah.
You got, highs and lows, sidebar stories. There's all kinds of dramatics, man, and that's why I think it appeals to the emotion. When people say baseball is boring, I'm like, you haven't invested. You haven't even tried to even understand what goes on, because it's more than just, there's too much time and it's not fast enough and there's not enough people tackling and there's no yelling. A lot of crying in baseball.
A lot of crying in baseball.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
So
well, I agree with everything you're saying there. I agree with. I think they should just go back to regular uniforms at the All-Star games, and
that's our vote. We're sticking to it.
Yeah, that's our vote. I will say, if I do have to give a favorite, this is such a cop-out answer, but it really is like truly. I'm not just brown nosing here. Really is my favorite uniform was that 2013. It's good for me. A lot of it is. It has a cool double meaning now. Obviously, I'm a Mets fan, so I loved having the All-Star game at Citi Field. But,
how old were you?
David?
How old were you?
I was 13.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So,
oh my god. Hey,
actually, I was not yet 13 because my birthday's in August, so I was still 12 while I was watching that. But
hot. All I remember is the batting practice or the home run derby. I brought my camera. The lens was fogging. It was the humidity was like we were melting. Going like, oh my god. It was a hot one. And when you pack that many people into an arena, it gets hotter. And Glover has had enough. My goodness gracious.
I can hear him, man.
He's sawing logs.
Look
at, I'm gonna get him on the show.
Cool,
listen to the folks at home and to believe. Come here, this fat bowling ball I have is called a dog. I can't even lift him. He's like,
let's see him.
Let's go. Come here, you hog. Come here. This is Glover. If you hear him, he's
there
live.
He is.
He's gonna be 10.
Glover's first appearance on Mound Visit.
I just woke him up from a slumber, but you know what?
Poor guy.
He wanted to be on air. There you go. Now go.
Did he?
Go relax somewhere else, man. Interrupting all this.
Oh my god.
Nonsense. Well, we had a loaded show.
Yes.
That's what you get on Mound Visit, though. There's all kinds of sidebars and zigzags.
A lot of great questions, too. Thank you so much to everyone who sent those questions in. We appreciate it. Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed our Call to the Bullpen episode for this week. We do this every week, so if you want to see your questions featured, just send them. You can tweet them at Grilli. You can tweet them at myself. You can tweet them at the show, whichever way is easiest for you. Hit us up on Instagram or Twitter. X. That's right. At Mound Visit Pod. Little underscore in between each of those. And if you like the show, please, it really helps us out. Subscribe to the show. If you like to watch it on YouTube, you could do it for free. And you could follow us wherever you get the shows. We're a part of the Believe Podcast Network, so you could follow us there or wherever you get
Were we a sellout or a buyout? We believe, baby.
We're a trade. No, it's a trade chip.
Up.
We're a blue chip. That's right.
They wanted us. They came and they saw us, and now we're in.
That's right. And people, thank you so much. We appreciate all your support.
Love you guys.
And we will talk to you next week.